completely immune from any lawsuits for illegal spying unless they deliberately or willfully disclose to the public what it is that they learn. So they basically said the government officials are immune when they break the law from lawsuits, except in the narrowest of cases. And so the Obama administration sought to bar any lawsuits against Bush officials for illegal spying after they spent the last 8 months assuring the public that Bush officials would still be held accountable even though telecoms were immune.
Explain more, Glenn Greenwald, about this issue of sovereign immunity.
Well, the idea of sovereign immunity, it actually is one that comes from the British king. The idea was that the king is too important and too elevated. He's the sovereign, and therefore is immune from being sued by his subjects. And when the Constitution was written, essentially the idea of sovereign immunity became the government can't be dragged into court by citizens unless it agrees in advance to waive its sovereign immunity. And what the Congress has done in many, many cases was pass laws that essentially say that if government officials do certain things, the immunity is waived and they can be sued. And in the wake of the eavesdropping abuses that were discovered and documented in the mid-1970s as a result of the Church Commission, the Congress passed numerous laws that the president signed into law that said exactly that. They passed FISA and the Wiretap Act and amendments to the Stored Communications Act, which explicitly say that if the government illegally engages in surveillance on Americans, they can and they can be sued. That causes of action exist on the part of the victims of the illegal eavesdropping to sue the government officials who are responsible. The laws say that as explicitly as possible. And what the Obama administration is claiming is that there are provisions of the Patriot Act which secretly or implicitly repeal those laws, and that the intent of the Patriot Act was to immunize government officials, to expand the sovereign immunity so that government officials can no longer be sued for illegal eavesdropping, notwithstanding these explicit laws that say that they can, in the absence of claims that they willfully disclose to the public what they learned. In other words, government officials, according to the Obama administration, can sit there and read your emails and listen in on your phone calls, even when doing so is illegal, and even when they know that what they're doing is illegal, and you can't sue them unless they willfully disclose to the public what it is that they learn. It is an extraordinarily extremist claim of government immunity that, as I said, not even the Bush administration espoused, and it's designed to protect government officials, including Bush officials, from any consequences for having spied illegally on Americans.
Glenn, I want to ask Thomas Tamm, do you think government officials, the telecoms, should be held accountable?
Absolutely. You know, when I was in OIPR, we worked every day with the telecommunications companies. They knew what was legal. They knew what they were authorized to do. They employed the best law firms in the country to advise them. And I really think that the only way we're ultimately going to really learn what happened is through litigation, such as what Glenn was talking about, and with regard to the immunity. I mean, to me, why don't we find out what was done, and then you can make a discretionary decision as to whether you want to go forward in any other fashion or whether good faith is a valid defense. Personally, I think that the Bush administration officials should be held accountable. I'm actually learning something, as I have in the past, from hearing Glenn talk or reading his blog about this sovereign immunity. I was unaware of that, and that's truly disappointing.
And Glenn Greenwald, very briefly, the significance of what Thomas Tamm did back in 2004 when he slipped into the D.C. Metro and made that phone call to the Times.
Yeah, it's one of the most heroic acts of the Bush era. It's exactly what we've been lacking in our government, our brave whistleblowers, and Thomas Tamm is one of the few who was patriotic enough to do it.
And lastly, Glenn Greenwald, 30 seconds on the torture memos, what they said.
Well, these torture memos are the most graphic of the documents that exist, where they not only generally redefine torture, but explicitly authorize the tactics that are clearly war crimes. They said it's perfectly permissible to wrap people's heads in towels and bang them against the wall. These are not intelligence documents. These are laws that our government operated under, and the idea of keeping these concealed, secret laws is as tyrannical as it gets, and this is a huge test for the Obama administration today.
I want to thank you both for being with us. Glenn Greenwald, constitutional law attorney and political and legal blogger for Salon.com, and Thomas Temm, congratulations on receiving the Ridenour Prize today. It's going to be streamed at ridenour.org for whistleblowers who speak out in these critical times. Thanks so much for being with us. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. When we come back, our exclusive interview with death row prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal.
The war against us all. This war in Iraq isn't the end, it's the beginning of wars to come, all around the world, at the whim of the neocons in the White House. This is the Bush Doctrine come to life. War, war, and more war. War brought to you by the big corporate masters who run the show. This isn't just a war on Iraqis or Afghanis, or even Arabs or Muslims. It is ultimately a war on us all.